why are your poops so shy? They're just staying in your bowels and they're not letting themselves go. 20% of America is suffering with chronic constipation. What is constipation? Like, let's define this. Constipation is defined by one who does not poop within 30 minutes of rising, one that poops less than 2 times a day, and someone who may have been diagnosed with IBS or SIBO. If you have really hard, dry poops that are arduous to push out, rabbit poops. So many people, they're not pooping anywhere near close to that. And then you go to your doctor at some point, you start having results like this, and it's just a pain in the ass. You know, we start getting hemorrhoids, we start having to push, and it feels like we have a baby like 2 or 3 times a week. We're trying to push these suckers of toxic waste out. I've experienced hemorrhoids in my past, and they are not fun. It looks like these little alien guys coming out your butt. It is your body screaming at you in the language of symptoms to let this shit go.
Drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot.
What's up, warriors? And wake up, wake up, wake up! Diane here, and I am your head warrior for this video today. We are gonna be talking shit. It's not a lot of people's favorite topic, but it also isn't a lot of people's favorite toxic either. In fact, did you know that constipation is one of the #1 causes today of digestion problems? 20% of America is suffering with chronic constipation. And what is constipation? Like, let's define this, right? So constipation is defined by one who does not poop within 30 minutes of rising, one that poops less than 2 times a day, and someone who may have been diagnosed with IBS or SIBO or things like that where doctors don't really even talk about constipation. IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, and SIBO stands for small intestine bacterial overgrowth. There's also something called SIFO today, which is small intestine fungal overgrowth, but I will not talk about that in this video today, just for simplification purposes. So here's what's kind of funny, right? So many people today are suffering, animals are suffering, children are suffering. Like, what is the deal? Actually, the big deal is this. #1, doctors are defining a healthy poop as someone who goes 2 to 3 times a week. They're like, every 3 days, that's fine. Every 2 days, that's fine. So the information that you guys are getting out there right now is not very inspirational. So you're thinking to yourself, well, hey, you know, I guess I'm not constipated because the doctor said it's fine. But in the functional medicine space, we would prefer that you poop 2 to 3 times a day. Theoretically, after every meal, you're pooping. After every time you put in food, then the toxic waste comes out. It should be like 12 hours or so transit time. But for so many people, they're not pooping anywhere near close to that. And then you go to your doctor at some point, you start having results like this. If you're constipated, you have higher odds of cancer, you have higher odds of irritability, autoimmune disease, weight gain, fatigue, skin issues, bloating, vomiting, and nausea. And it's just a pain in the ass. You know, we start getting hemorrhoids, we start having to push, and it feels like we have a baby like 2 or 3 times a week. We're trying to push these suckers of toxic waste out, right? I've experienced hemorrhoids in my past, and they are not fun. It looks like these little alien guys coming out your butt. And you're like, what do I do with these things? Do I like send them back to space? Did they land here in a UFO in the middle of my sleeps? What's going on here? The problem is you go in with constipation and your doctor says, oh, looks like maybe they poke and prod you with some scopes. Maybe they even run some stool tests to see if there's any kind of things like parasites going wrong. And this is a tiny, tiny snippet of the tests that we run to see like what the root cause issues are, which we'll talk about today. And they're like, well, we couldn't really find anything wrong with you other than, you know, you have IBS. Maybe you're watching and you're like, thank God I got a diagnosis. I now know I have IBS. Well, that's exactly what you told the doctor when you walked in the door. You said, you know what, doctor? My bowels seem to be pretty pissed off. They seem to be pretty irritated. They're not releasing, they're holding back. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, you have irritable bowel syndrome. That's the same thing as what you just said. It's a very lazy diagnosis. At best, you will leave there with maybe some sort of prescription drugs and a recommendation to go to CVS and get some Miralax or X-Lax or something like that. Maybe some diet changes if you're lucky. But constipation is a big problem today. And constipation is also defined by someone who has rabbit poops. If you have really hard, dry poops that are arduous to push out. That's constipation too. The flip side of that would be diarrhea, where you're losing a lot of water as well. But constipation is anything other than poop that looks like a banana, or maybe a little bit like a sausage with some cracks on the side. So if your poops don't look like that, then you probably got some of these problems that we're gonna talk about today. So today we're gonna get into shy poo and fly poo. And we're gonna start with shy poo. So the question is why are your poops so shy? They're just staying in your bowels and they're not letting themselves go and they're not letting themselves flow out of you. So what does that mean is that anytime you have shy poo, you've got a lot of toxicity backing up into your bowels and causing all sorts of problems. First of all, let's talk about the SAD diet. SAD stands for Standard American Diet. The reason why most of us are having a hard time going number 2, releasing a lot of poo, is because we're not adequately fueling you. And what the SAD diet looks like is, of course, you guys know, right? We all know that we should be eating better, but these foods, they taste so good and they're so convenient, right? And they're so cheap. This is a trade-off. Are you okay feeding yourself shit and feeling like shit and holding on to shit, or would you rather make some shifts? The reason I'm doing this video is because so many people are struggling with it, even the women that are following our Warrior Cleanse recipe book and the protocols we've recommended. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, just change your diet, exercise some more, drink some more water. The SAD diet is processed foods. It's foods that contain a lot of ingredients that are just not even real. They're artificial colors, artificial ingredients, a lot of genetically modified organisms, and all kinds of things that just gum up our intestines and they slow things down, they back things up. So it's processed foods, a lot of sugar. Dairy is the second biggest culprit. If you're eating a lot of sugar, if you're eating a lot of dairy, these are 2 big culprits that will just slow down the train, right? They'll slow down the poop pipe. And gluten is another one. So those are the 3 most common offenders that I see. And even clients I have pull them out of their diet and they're still constipated. So that's what the rest of these bullets of the 6 reasons why your poop might be so shy. What I would recommend is, number 1, starting off with getting rid of all the processed foods, getting rid of all the fake ingredients, getting rid of a high sugar diet, high dairy diet, and high gluten diet. And what I mean by high gluten diet is just get rid of dairy completely. Just get rid of gluten. I talk all about this in my Warrior Cleanse program. You can go to my website, dianekaiser.com, and you could buy the recipe book and just literally follow the recipes in there. They're all free of soy, dairy, gluten, and GMOs, artificial colors, etc. Foods that are very inflammatory for the gut and that slow down metabolism and just back things up. Start first by changing your diet and going into a real food diet. Years ago, when we were roaming the planet and we had to go hunt our own food, we were eating about 150 grams of fiber per day. Whoa, and a lot of that was fermented fiber. A lot of it was really healthy foods and fiber and fats. Today, we're lucky if we're getting like 10 grams of fiber per day. And fiber is like the food that comes from vegetables, it comes from healthy grains, and also from fruit, but mostly from vegetables, leafy greens, etc. You could also get them from things like flax seeds. Flax is really high in fiber. So that's one of the things we talk about in the Warrior Cleanse, is how to bump your fiber up and what things that you can add into your life to make it really simple. At least 25 grams of fiber is something I recommend, but a lot of people are starting from a position of 8. So if you triple your fiber and you start to feel like now you're backed up, maybe it's because you don't even have the proper amount of healthy bacteria in your gut to break down that fiber, and now things are backing up even further, and you're like, hey, it's the fiber's fault, it's the diet's fault, it didn't work. No, it's just that something else is going on with your body. So I would start here first, is getting rid of these foods, adding a little bit more fiber, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the fly poop side. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that so many prescription drugs are constipating. 2 of them that I know are really constipating is birth control, because it really slows down the function of your adrenals, which make your sex, stress, and sleep hormones. You guys, as women, you probably noticed that when you're getting ready for your period, you start to have a lot more loose bowels. And the reason is because your hormones are all over the place, progesterone specifically. When you're taking birth control, all those hormones just drop because you're on birth control. So your body's like, well, I'm getting them from the outside, so I don't need to make my own. Then the second part to that is that there's antidepressants, antibiotics. A lot of these things create antibiotic resistance, especially antibiotics are killing a lot of the good bugs that help our body break down these healthy foods in our gastrointestinal tract to make a poop. A lot of drugs out there, especially mood altering drugs, sleep medications, these cause a lot of backup, and they dehydrate us. So prescription drugs, and I can never say get off of your drugs, but a lot of people that I've seen taking a lot of medications are also severely backed up. The more medications, the more constipated you're likely to be. A lot of people don't even realize this, but there is a pill for every ill today. And so many people think that, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. I got to take a prescription drug and I got to take it for life. You know, the doctor said that, and there's nothing that I can do with my genes. My parents had this problem, and I want to stop my symptoms, so I'm just going to take a drug. There is a life that exists where you can actually get off of medications and heal the root cause, which is exactly what we do in our community, so that you don't have to take prescription drugs and suffer the long-term consequences of the toxicity inside of these medications. A lot of these medications, which your doctor will never really tell you unless you ask for the label specifically, and oftentimes they don't even know the answer to this. A lot of medications have dairy, gluten, artificial colors, artificial flavors, sugar, etc. Lots of GMOs, soy, corn, but they're not legally bound to tell you that. So if you have food sensitivities or unknown food allergies, you're still not even scratching the surface, because there are food sensitivities and food allergies. So today, a big part of constipation is also caused by leaky gut, which is caused by a lot of the same things that cause constipation. And when you have a leaky gut, you have a lot more food sensitivities. And that typically means the standard 7, like the sugar, the dairy, the corn, the gluten, the GMOs, etc. Soy is another one of them. You can get off of prescription drugs because there are natural healing root cause issues that once you discover what they are, we can work with those and slowly wean you off of prescription drugs with the support of your doctor and making sure that we're talking with them on a team. Especially antidepressants, you don't just want to get off of an antidepressant. You definitely want to work with the doctor on weaning yourself off slowly. So big disclaimer there. I would never recommend anything like that without first talking to your doctor, and that we can establish a team with them and put together a plan for you. It doesn't really make sense, does it? Just to start working with, okay, I'm going to take some laxatives as a band-aid on top of these already existing band-aids. The question is like, how can I heal the root cause of these issues and get off of prescription medication so that I'm not constipated and I don't have to keep adding things on top of things, and before you know it, you're on like 15 supplements to help pigeonhole the deficiencies that the prescriptions are causing. Number 3 is toxicity. The average female today puts on about 300 to 500 different chemicals before she even leaves the house. That's insane. If you go to a grocery store, there's going to be about 10,000 plus ingredients and chemicals that really only about 2% or so have been tested and approved for safety. And in total, we're breathing in all these toxins. 98% of the toxins that we're exposed to are in our own home. And so we have toxins everywhere. They're everywhere. We're breathing them in, we're applying them onto our body, we're consuming them, we're creating negative mindset thinking, and that's creating more toxins in our body. Over 100,000 chemicals today are existing in America. And again, about 2% or so of them have actually been approved and tested. So we're the lab rats, right? And today we are so toxic that a lot of these toxins are gumming up the liver. They're backing up into the bile ducts of the gallbladder that can't release bile as well into the liver, so that when you eat healthy fats that should help you poop, you're not able to break them down properly because your pipes are all backed up. So we really want to be mindful of your toxicity exposure. The 4th one is depression. If your bowels are constipated, if you tend to aggregate toward a constipation or dry or difficult to push out or hemorrhoid kind of bowels, large intestine, then you probably have more depression. We tend to hold on. What are you holding on to? You're holding on to parts of your past. Actually, some people even talk about weight loss. Is like, if you think about the term weight loss, oh gosh, like just the word loss is scary. We're so afraid to lose things today in our society, so we try to keep possession of them. So even sometimes losing weight is something that our brain might consider, oh, well, and I'm gonna have to mourn losing my weight. So we tend to hold on. We hold on to guilt, shame, fear, and we press that down into our organs, and it slows down our metabolism. And at some point, our adrenals and our thyroid stops functioning properly, and we've got metabolic dysfunction as well. So think about your thoughts. This is much bigger than many people even realize, but it must be addressed. What we do in our programs is we address simultaneously toxicity and trauma as well. Toxicity falls in a number of different places in our program. Hormonal imbalance is the next one. So hormonal imbalance is things like, I call it your Tao, your thyroid, your adrenals, and your ovaries. If you're watching and you're a guy, of course, it's your thyroid and your adrenals specifically. So your adrenals are making things like stress, sex, and sleep hormones, all of which have a huge impact on your bowels and your ability to let shit go. And your thyroid releases thyroid hormone, which sparks up your metabolism and gets things revving and moving so that you're digesting at a healthy pace. The average person today is actually digesting about 2 to 3 times slower than they should, which is why most Americans are experiencing constipation. And they're not pooping after every meal, or at least 2 meals a day. So we really need to focus on, well, what's the health of your thyroid? What's the health of your adrenals? And I actually have several other videos that I'll link below this that you can watch on what exactly does it mean to have a healthy thyroid. Because my doctor's been testing my thyroid and they said that everything's fine. Or you have been tested and things are not fine, and all they've done is given you Synthroid. That is a huge red card, because the reason why your thyroid and your adrenals are off is because of some other root causes that we're talking about in this video. So it's very important to really properly test, and not just a blood test, not just, TSH, T4, T3, but looking at the full spectrum of what a healthy thyroid means. And you can watch what that looks like in another video here where I talk about thyroid health and all the things that impact your thyroid, which is the birthplace of your metabolism. Metabolism governs how quickly you digest your food and let that shit go, right? And hormonal imbalance is of course related to depression. So if you have thyroid issues and adrenal issues, you're probably also depressed. Depression is not just a state of mind. Depression means that everything has slowed down in your body. Your bowels have slowed down, your mind has slowed down, your ability to digest your food has slowed down, detoxification slowed down, your ability to turn over food and convert it to fuel to make hair, skin, nails, to burn fat, all of that's just slowed down. So the same rate we're seeing depression today is probably about the same rate that we're seeing constipation too. They go hand in hand. And then the 6th one is dysbiosis. What does dysbiosis mean, you say? So dysbiosis is when you don't have happy, pretty princess poops. Dysbiosis starts from not good bacteria taking over. So we don't really know too much about the exact proportion because bioindividuality, and we're right now still in the early infancy of what's called doing the gut microbiome project, which is to say that we're exploring the different kinds of flora of gut bacteria that exist in your gastrointestinal tract. So maybe 80-20 is a good ratio, 80% good, 20% bad. And what's happening is that for many people, that number is switching. Not necessarily exactly 80-20, 80% being bad, 20% being good, but somewhere in there, and every person's different. We actually do stool testing to explore your flora to see all the different species of parasites and bacteria and fungus and virulence factors, inflammatory markers, the health of your immune system. We look at all of this stuff in a stool test, and that's not even close to what your doctor's running at a standard, general practitioner's office, or even working with a gastrointestinal specialist. They're looking for bad bugs and maybe some inflammatory markers, but they're not looking at the root cause issues in your tissues which are causing constipation. And of course, like I said, they'll just recommend you go do some Marilax. So dysbiosis today is happening largely because, number one, we're not eating a lot of fermented foods like we used to. Fermented foods are like kimchi and, hey, I'm drinking some right now, kombucha, and then also tempeh, which is fermented soy. We used to eat a ton of fermented vegetables, and today we're barely getting any. We're lucky if we get a pickle or two, and pickles are fermented. That's just one example, right? So we're not getting enough of these healthy floras. And we're also, when we do have healthy flora, so let's say you are taking a probiotic, which is healthy bacteria, they also still need to be fed. So we can't, it's not enough just to take a probiotic. We also want to feed them with prebiotics. So I talk all about this in our programs, especially our Chi program, our Cleanse, Heal, Ignite program, where we dive really deep into all of this and look at your stool test, look at your gut test to see like what's really going on here with your ratios, instead of just being like, hey, just go take a probiotic or eat some more fiber. We can get super customized, and half of the population, at least that we have checked when we're doing stool testing, we see some really gnarly pathogens, which are like the parasites, the bacteria, the fungus. We see some really gnarly ones that we have to put back into balance. So when you've got more bad girls than good girls, you probably are gonna have an issue breaking down your food into waste and getting it out of your body. So let's move over here to the fly poo, shall we?
Drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot.